it! Get a grip! This stupid video I just showed you! I almost stroked out and died over it. You're watching a different show! You donkey! You ain't a captain of nothing but a sinking ship! Don't do this to me, Harry! The Ohio State. It's Ohio State! What do you mean, the? 312-988-15.
Hello?
You tell Johnny all you've heard and seen. Sometimes it's good to just yell about football. Yeah, that's right. Welcome in. Welcome back, folks. There's a lot going on. Tomorrow's going to be a big day in this country. One of the biggest days in this country. Why? Well, we're going to find out about the college football playoff and who falls where in the first rankings and everything. That's why. It's going to be a big deal for the country. There's a lot leaning on this. There's a lot dependent on this. I got a bunch of things to ask you guys. Feel free to light up the phones today if anybody's, I know everybody's messed up with the hour off and everything about all this. I need... feel free to dial it up. I want to know what you're predicting for the college football playoff situation tomorrow. Just how bad is Florida State? And are they so bad that it's almost creating a weird, different kind of concern for Notre Dame's game with them because they're so off the radar bad that it's triggering a whole different kind of pressure in a very unique setup rolling into that game, because I'm feeling some of that. And I want to know what you think of the game Saturday while Notre Dame was sitting there eating Charlie Weiss's cheeseburger. So I got a lot. Jerry Reinsdorf, do you think I'm going to sign a lot of free agents? No. And the ones you do will be bad at baseball. I know that. So that's my take on that. So I want to know, any of that stuff is open for interpretation. You can write it in the chat. You can put it in, the call-in lines, 312-918, wherever you want to go. Covering the games over the weekend, anything that surprised you, the CFP and what you think is going to happen. And Florida State's so off the radar bad. It's hitting me in a weird way. So that's kind of where I want to go, what I want to go over. Here's the first thing we're going to do. A couple super chats we're going to get to you. Thank you very much for the early donations. You keep the phone lines going. Couple phone calls here. I'm going to go over a couple notes, then we'll get into that. We'll see where the day takes us. Number one is, did you guys see this morning? It looks like Notre Dame and Texas are planning a home-and-home series in 28 and 29. So Notre Dame has... they got the ongoing series with A&M. Then they also already have one scheduled with Alabama after that. And then you're scheduling one with Texas after that. So again, you're in a situation where everybody around the country is going to say Notre Dame doesn't play anybody. Notre Dame doesn't schedule anybody. Notre Dame gets to handpick the easiest schedule of all time and try and run the table and all this stuff. All of the lies you see from dummies on social media and on Twitter. And here you are. And Notre Dame's playing a line of Texas A&M, who looks like a good, even though they crapped the bed over the weekend, they look like a rising, tough SEC team. Everybody will agree with that, even though they misstepped this weekend. Then you have a series with Alabama. Then you have one with Texas. So again, they're going to say you don't play anybody, you don't schedule anybody, all that stuff. Here we go. So, whatever. But I did see that news this morning, and I think it's very interesting. And so let me get my initial Florida State thought out. And I saw Pat reference this early before the show started. I'm going to throw this line in the water. And I'm just going to see if anybody agrees or anybody doesn't agree or whatever. Omar, yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's very observant of you. And I would like to know how you knew that. Not everybody knows that, but the answer to your question is yes. Yeah, Arkansas is on there as well. But man, here's the Florida State situation. They are so off the radar bad that this matchup that we have had circled for over a year as Eric, it's good to see you at the Ohio Pod, by the way. Eric, I've been playing around with that little AI tool that you referenced to me, and I'm having some fun with it, Eric. I might just have to pay up and get the full thing because I'm having some creative ideas with the thing you introduced me to. I played around with, and I'm out of the free ones, and it might be time to pay up because Johnny Boy had way too much fun. I had stuff about Brian Kelly on there. I had stuff like, dude, I started getting creative, and it might just be time to pay up for the full program, Eric, because I typed in some really funny stuff, and the way it came out was pretty amazing. And I don't care if nobody liked it but me. I found it entertaining. So thank you, Eric. Here's the problem. Florida State is so terrible that it's almost creating like a complex in my head about this game. It started out a year ago of, okay, now people are asking if my basement's a green screen. It is real. All the stuff behind me is real, and the original was real, but then I got a green screen in front of it. So all of that stuff is really behind it originally, but then I got a green screen so I could change it to other things. That's it. I'm hitting the green screen now. It's like 2 feet right behind my chair. So everything you see in the basement is on the wall, but what you're actually seeing is the green screen so I can change it out to other things in the stadium when I want and all that stuff. So yes, it's real, but you're also looking at a green screen. It's both. See, you can see me hitting it. But that allows me to change the backdrop and add things and do all that kind of stuff. So there is literally a 10 by 10 green sheet hanging from my basement right behind me, 2 feet behind me. So here's the deal with this Florida State thing. Phil, are you real? No, I am not. You met me in person, Phil. No, I am not. Are you talking about me, SPF? I've never seen a grown man so obsessed with another man. Are you talking about me? Oh, I love seeing that guy fail. It's one of my favorite hobbies. Are you kidding me? Any chance I get till the day I die. It's not, I don't care. SPF, you have no idea the misery that man has caused me in my life. SPF, you have no idea the years that man has cut off my lifespan. SPF, you have no idea how much hair has fallen out of my head because of that man. You do not understand my relationship with him. So sit this one out. You have your relationship with him and you navigate it the way you want. You have no idea what that person has put me through in my life for over a decade. You have no idea. All of the misery on the front end and all the stuff behind the scenes, you have no idea the frustration that man has caused me. So sit this one out. You don't have the same relationship with him. I do. I'm never going to get over it. I'll have an axe to grind forever. That man has cut 20 years off my lifespan because of the way he acted in Notre Dame. And it's just the way it's going to be. It's just the way it's going to be. You telling me to move on. It's my show. I ain't moving on. I'll do whatever I want. I'm not moving on. I don't care. Don't watch it if you don't like it. I'm not moving on. Sorry. It's a personal vendetta and it's never going away. That's my situation. And it just happens to be that I have a show. So that's what you're going to get. It's what you're going to get. It's personal. Leave it at that. Here's the deal with Florida State. Then we'll go to the calls. They're off the radar bad, but I know they have some talent. It's very, very strange. They're not like a one-win team, but they have no talent on the entire roster and in the program or whatever. They have no talent. That's not it. So that's a little dangerous. That's a little dangerous to me because I know there's some talent there, but it's totally disjointed and they can't do anything. They just can't do anything. So it's really weird because they're not a typical one-win team where you say the roster's totally bereft of talent and there's just nothing in the program. You can't say that. So that's a little weird. That's a little weird. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I have been watching week by week the Florida State media. and I've been watching the way they react to these games. Like we have our beat guys, and then they do a report on the field after the game, and there's a few main ones, and you know who they are, and you want to see what they think. I've been following that throughout the year. These guys are literally these guys make a living selling subscriptions to their Florida State website. That's how they make a living. These reporters is getting people to sign up $10 a month for the FSU stuff. They are literally coming on the air every week and saying, this is the worst team I've ever seen. They have quit. They don't try hard. We suck. We do nothing right. There is no hope. No, literally this weekend, they said no part of this team did anything good enough. Every single unit is a failure, and they quit, and they're not even trying, and this is a nightmare. Bro, when you got people whose livelihoods depend on selling subscriptions to Florida State information, and they're on the air saying there is no hope, everything about this is so bad, no one's trying, no unit is good, no individual players are playing good at all, man, that's a red flag. And that's where they're at. That is a red flag, and that's where they're. When your own beat guys that make a living selling subscriptions can't find any hope at all, they cannot find any bright spot, not like a young player that the team sucks, but this freshman's balling out, playing hard. Let's focus on development. No, they got nothing. They got nothing. Okay? So I don't know what happened that you went from undefeated to you can't win a game or whatever. All I know is they're coming to your place, and you sure as hell can't be the ones to let them off the mat and give them another win. I know that right now. I know that right now. Ronald McDonald says Notre Dame has no quality wins and the worst loss. They're not getting in over BYU or Indiana. I do think... How much credit do you get for the A&M win now? How much credit do you get for the A&M win now? And by the way, isn't that the most predictable thing of all time for A&M to have this huge win and get all this national credit, knock off Kelly? Everybody's writing articles saying they're a real contender, and then you lay an egg the next week. It's the most predictable thing of all time. It's the most predictable thing of all time. Hey, does it ring a bell, anybody? Can anybody here in the group think of any other football team that did that? Where maybe you had a really, really huge win, and then the next week you didn't do anything, it didn't show up, and then you lost. Anybody else remember a team that did that? Oh, yeah, it was us. At least when they did it, it was on the road in the SEC, not to Northern Illinois. At least when A&M laid an egg, it was on the road in the SEC, not Northern Illinois at home. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So here's what I think. Dr. John saying, Florida State season would be made with the win Saturday. Dr. John, there's a big part of me that wonders if they're just done. I think they just might be done. And I think that they just quit and maybe they're done. And here's what I want you. Oh, I'm picturing this in my mind. Here's what I want, Dr. John. These guys are down and out. What are they? 1-8. They're the worst team in America. Everybody thinks they suck. They're a laughingstock, blah, 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 blah. Now they're coming to South Bend, Indiana on November 9th and whatever, this and that. Here's what I want. They are miserable. They suck. They're no good. They're playing for nothing. They have nothing to live for. I want cold. What is the weather forecast? Anybody got it? I want cold and windy, and I want them to get off the plane and go, man, we already know we suck, and now we got to be cold in the Midwest. I'm not interested in this. That's what I want. Give me some cold South Bend breeze coming off that lake, whatever. I want some cold weather, and I want these guys miserable, and I want them just to be done before they start. So they're already feeling bad about themselves. Somebody said 40s, and now somebody's saying 60s. Well, which is it? So now somebody said 60s, 50s, and 40s. Which is it? I put this in. What's the temperature? I got 40s, 50s, 60s. Which is it? That's a big span. Well, it's either going to be 90 degrees or 30 degrees. I don't know. One of those. What do you mean one of those? Sunny. It's going to be night. What do you mean? What an experiment. This is the internet, you guys. I asked for the temperature and I got 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm getting the daytime temperature for a nighttime kickoff. I got everything. That's hilarious. That made my morning. The 40s to those guys from Tallahassee, the 40s feels like negative 26. I want them all with ski masks like they're getting ready to rob a 7-Eleven off the Dan Ryan in Chicago. That's what I want. That's what I want. Watch for it. Watch for it. You know, the guys come out and they do their little warm-up or whatever, and then they go back in, and then they come back. I want them all with the full ski mask. I want a barrel of garbage there lit on fire for them to warm up and rub their little hands. I want them cold and miserable, and you need to blow them out. You need to blow them out. Here's, callers, I'm coming to you. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. I don't know what this committee's going to do with Notre Dame. I don't trust. Let's start with this. I'm going to put out an episode tomorrow morning about what I'm expecting from the initial playoff rankings coming out. Here's my default setting. Somebody could tell me if you disagree. Here's my default setting. I do not trust this committee to operate fairly or logically or consistently whatsoever. I do not trust them. John, what do you mean? You're a conspiracy theorist already. What about this and that? Give them a shot on the first one or whatever. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm expecting games to be played. I'm expecting malfeasance to be involved. I'm expecting games to be played. And you want to know why? You put in charge of this new 12-team committee a guy that you approached to take the job while he was being investigated for multiple scandals at Michigan. And that's the guy they identified that they wanted to run this whole thing. I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. And trust me, you can't throw Ward Manuel very far. Okay? So I absolutely 100% do not trust these people to be logical or to treat Notre Dame fairly. No, absolutely not, because you're starting off from a place with no integrity to begin with. Whoever the powers that be are that decided to ask a guy being investigated for multiple scandals if he wanted to be in charge of all this, that tells you these people have no morals or integrity right off the bat. So I don't trust anything about anything they're going to do at all. At all. I don't trust it. Also, here's the issue you have if you're Notre Dame. The issue I have with Notre Dame is you got the worst loss of anybody in the mix for the playoff. Do you not? Tell me, you guys, who has a worse loss in contention for this playoff than Northern Illinois? I'm coming to you, callers. I'm just asking, who has a worse loss of anybody in here that wants to be involved in this than Notre Dame with Northern Illinois? That's an issue. That's an issue. So, and you could say, okay, Notre Dame's better than Penn State, whatever. Penn State's going to end up with the rest of their schedule's a joke. They're going to end up 11-1 with no wins over anybody ranked, but they're in the Big Ten and whatever, and they're going to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame, and they're going to act like they're good at football. That's the way it is. Okay, that's just what's going to happen here. But they play nobody the rest of the way. They're going to go 11-1. They lose the one big dude. I'm not right about everything. I'm right about every single thing I said about Penn State and James Franklin coming into this. I'm 100% proved correct after this weekend. Are you outside your mind? Give me a break. So every single thing I said about, they're just chokers, man. Choked on the big stage again. It's on, what was he? Franklin's now 3-18 against the top 10 and lost 8 in a row against Ohio State. Just totally crumble on the biggest stage. But they carry themselves like they're good, and Franklin acts like he's cool. It all annoys me, man. It all annoys me. So they did what they did and failed on the big stage yet again. But anyways, Notre Dame, here's the problem. Notre Dame has that horrible loss to Northern Illinois. It's not, okay? Before this weekend, you could at least argue that Notre Dame's win on the high end was a super win, an SEC road win against the team that's cruising through the SEC and looks great. You don't have that anymore. Because of what Texas A&M did. So my thought was, okay, you have the Northern Illinois loss on the low end. You have the A&M win that keeps getting better and better on the high end. Can the high end win outweigh the badness of that loss? But when A&M goes and gets their teeth kicked in against an average SEC team, then that hurts your argument. So I don't know, man. So that's just tough. That's just tough. So I don't know. SPF, you're comparing things that are not the same. You're better than this. You're here every day. Why are you comparing things that you know intellectually are not the same thing? You're comparing apples to oranges. I'm talking about high-end games against top-ranked teams. Northern Illinois is not that. That loss is a totally different problem. SPF, I expect more from you. You're better than this. I'm not talking about Northern Illinois. I'm talking about those top-ranked wins and what you do in those type of games. The Northern Illinois loss is a totally different situation than your record against top-end teams. And can you compete with all that pressure? That's a whole different problem. I'm not overlooking Northern, but it's a separate problem and one I'm not talking about right now. Separate problem. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But you have to speak on his lows. Obviously, dude, you're here every day. You know, I lost my mind with Northern saying it's unacceptable and all this stuff. It's just, I'm talking about like that ranked stuff, man. James Franklin just can't get it. He's just 3-18, man. 3-18. Oh, man. All right. Couple super chats and then we'll go to the callers. So anyways, I have no idea what to expect, but I will say this. The two most important college football polls are the first one and the last one. The last one for obvious reasons. The first one is you have no data right now. And so you need to figure out, you need to have a baseline of where these people are thinking and like how they're processing things. Right? And so we have no idea. So we're going to find out, do you have two ranked teams above one loss teams because they're in a tougher conference or you respect their losses more? But like whatever it is, I don't know what you're going to get, but you're going to get your first data set tomorrow, and that's going to set the stage. And then from there, you're going to know what they value and what they prioritize. You'll be able to get an understanding of how much they're overvaluing if they are the Big Ten and the SEC over everybody else. I don't know. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But the issue is, you guys, when you have the worst loss of everybody in contention here, do you get to complain or do you just kind of get what you get? Some of these other teams have losses, but they're not to Northern. So I don't know what you do, man. And then your high-end win just took a big kick because they got the crap kicked out of them. So I don't know. Eric, $20 hour. I want payback for 93. ND runs up the score. Well, let's go. I'm all for you running up the score. Okay, we'll do the super chats and we'll get to the calls. $5 hour. Year 1007-26345. Poverty State can't beat OSU. Why do they keep playing the game? Just start every year at the loss. 0 for their last 8. Franklin's beat them once. 3-18 against top 10 teams. Absolutely horrible. Andrew, John, who's better than Franklin that you would hire? That's the problem. Yeah, Franklin doesn't suck. Whatever. I don't have, listen, I got enough problems, Andrew, trying to worry about Notre Dame football than I am worried about Penn State. They can do whatever they want. it's kind of like Ryan Day in a way where the bar is so high. Like you got to be careful what you ask for, right? Like people like Ryan Day averages like a loss a year or whatever. And there's half the people ready to run him out of town. You got to be careful what you ask for when your bar is that high that you're judging a guy on. So I don't have the answers. I never said Franklin sucked. He just isn't going to ever win anything that matters. And I want Penn State to quit being talked about in that way. That's my problem, Andrew. I'm not saying to fire James Franklin or whatever, and he wins 10 or 11 regular season games a year. That's really, really good. My problem is quit talking about them as if they're a real contender and taking them seriously and pumping them up every year when the evidence is there that they're not. That's my problem. I have no interest in Penn State. It doesn't matter to me if they fire Franklin or want somebody better or whatever. I have no dog in that fight. My problem is quit building Penn State up to be something they never are any year. That's my frustration is the buildup of Penn State as if this year's going to be different when it never is. That's the problem I have. And that's a media problem. That's a fan problem. That's a TV problem. That's a narrative problem. That's an AP poll in August problem. Well, we got to put them sixth or whatever. Oh, this is the year they're going to be different. People pick, I think Penn State this year's the year they could win the big one. No, they never do it. So my frustration is fully on the fact that people build them up and they never deliver. And I'm sick of hearing about it and reading about it and dealing with it. $5 holler from Rodney. Fascinating is the word to describe this college football season. If the Irish win out, we will host a home playoff game. I don't know. Are you sure? I'm not smart enough to do the math, like of all the things of who got to win and lose to move Notre Dame into the position to do this and that. Ryan Elliott, $5 holler. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much, my friend. Tex ND's asking, has Notre Dame ever beaten Ohio State? If they haven't, it hasn't been 30 games worth. It's been a few. That's the difference, Tex. I don't think... Is Notre Dame never beaten them? Or if they did, it was a lot. Whatever it is, it's not 30 games. Unbelievable. So whatever, man. And so here's what I think this committee could do. And then we'll go to the calls. Here's what I think the committee could do. I'm predicting this now. I think not only this year, but in future years, this committee's going to have to make some tough decisions with Notre Dame because they're an outlier. And we all know that and everything, independence, whatever. Here's what I think they're going to do. There's going to be a lot of years where this committee knows they can't justify leaving Notre Dame out. So they're going to leave Notre Dame in, but they're going to screw them with the seating and the hosting as much as possible. I'm predicting it right now. Book it. I'm planting the flag right there. That's what's going to happen. So they are going to know they can't leave Notre Dame out some of these years or whatever. They're going to put Notre Dame in, but they're going to give them the toughest possible run through that they can. And they're going to seed it the right. Like if Notre Dame could be in a debate for a home seed, they're going to be one out. So if 8's the hosting seed, they're going to put Notre Dame 9. Like I'm just telling you, there's little things this committee's going to do to where it looks like they're being fair to Notre Dame, include them in the field, but they're going to stack them up in the worst possible scenario once they're in. So if they could be an 8 or whatever, they're going to put them a 9 to make them go on the road. That's the kind of stuff games I'm talking about that are going to be played. So I don't know. And so it's going to be really, really interesting. And so that home game thing, what I think you're going to need is all of the right things to happen with somebody beating somebody and another beating somebody, and it all lines up and they can't avoid bumping you up. That's what I see. And I just think you're on the razor's edge there. What's going on in LA, Adam? I don't know, but it ain't pretty. It is the weirdest thing, man. USC has still not won a road game in the Big Ten, and all the losses are by single digit. Like all the losses are by one score. It is totally bizarre. Totally bizarre. They have still not won a road game in the Big Ten, USC, but every loss has been by one score. It is a very, very, very interesting thing. So I don't know. It's interesting. All right, you know what I'm going to do. Blow the nose, and then I'll be back and we'll take the calls. I got a full bank of calls, so everybody's going to get their time, and then I'm done talking. I'm done talking. I do think I'm getting better. I do think the cold's getting better. I think I'm on the mend, you guys. I'm on the mend. $10 alert from Callahan Auto Parts. I'm sorry, but there have been a lot of losses similar to NIU when you look at the skill gap and talent. Still no excuse, but you can't say Notre Dame isn't good winning games after that by 20 plus. Yeah, you could say Notre Dame's good winning those games by that, but your loss is your loss. Your loss is your loss, man. Like, I'm just sorry. If you're stacking up the losses, a conference loss to anybody in the Big Ten or SEC is going to look way better than losing to Northern. It's just the way it is. Rodney, what's going on? 949 after that, 646 after that, 419. What's up, Rodney?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing
What's going on, John?
I'm doing good, man. You must be busy. I feel like I haven't heard from you in a couple weeks here. I think you're busy. You got a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world of college football at Notre Dame. Where do you want to go, my friend?
Yeah, I've been doing that show Matilda. Anybody in the Indianapolis area, we're the show Matilda. Look it up, Google it. EPSILON Epsilon Theater Company. We open this weekend and next weekend. So that's what I've been doing, John. Just rehearsing all the time.
Oh man, that's
ready for the show.
I like your creativity. I like the art side of your mind there, buddy, with the music and the acting and everything. I think that's an interesting life and way of thinking and
I'm playing the Trunch Bowl. I'm playing it as a woman, so that'll be hilarious. I'll send you some pictures, John, when I get off the phone. You'll be quite maybe a little shocked, maybe a little disturbed. But anyway, so that's this weekend and next weekend if anybody is in the area. Anyway, yeah, man. So I'm watching college football on Saturday. It was fun, like you said, when you don't have to play and you don't have to worry about that stress. It's just fascinating watching all these things unfold. Yeah, I guess it's not a done deal that we would get a home playoff spot. I just feel like at number 9 or 10 where we're at right now, I just can't see us not moving up. Again, if we keep winning. I mean, that Army, we play those, them guys in a couple weeks, and if we can do to them something similar we did to Navy, or at least, win by a couple scores. I mean, they're ranked 18th now. I mean, honestly, Louisville just entered the top 25 again. We beat Navy, who was in the top 25. A&M is still a top 15 team. And then if we beat Army, that's 4 ranked opponents, man. I'm just saying, it's a pretty good resume so far. I got to give credit to Indiana, man. They're just kicking everybody's butt.
You know what's interesting? Honestly, they play Michigan this week, and that's really interesting to me because I got to admit, listen, the two things could be true at the same time. Number one is Indiana's been kicking the crap out of everybody, and they have not had the toughest schedule from until now. Both things could be true. They do look impressive, and they're kicking the crap out of people. But I'm just saying their schedule has not impressed me to where I'm like, oh, man, there's high-quality wins here and there. But the way they win looks really good. Let's see you do it against Michigan.
Oh, sure. Well, that's the thing, John. You can only, it's the same argument Notre Dame maybe has a little bit this year. Yes, the schedule isn't as tough of a slate as it usually is for us, which is why I just never understand when people talk about our schedule strength. It's like, dude, they're pretending like there's no evidence or proof. I mean, year in, year out, our schedules are ranked in the top 25 every year. I mean, every year. Over this is the one year I think it fell to the 50s or something. But we're always highly ranked schedules, and especially the way we travel. Like you said the other day on your show, now there's the Big Ten started experiencing, we got to go here and we got to go there. Welcome to our world. Welcome to our world,
So Rodney, but let me ask
you,
you, how penal is the Northern Illinois loss going to be in the eyes of this committee for a team that doesn't want to be like everyone else and be in a conference and make it easy to decide where they slot in? You want to do it your own way and be the outlier, and that's fine. But when you lose to a team like Northern, there's some risk there. So how is this committee going to approach Notre Dame tomorrow?
I think they're going to approach. Here's the thing: it's almost a schizophrenic thing with Notre Dame because on one hand, there's inbred hatred of us just near another fan base. If you're, the fact that the head of this whole committee is a Michigan guy. I mean, let's start there. However, at the same time, they also know Notre Dame sells tickets and keeps the eyes on the TV. So it's a weird dynamic. It's like that's why a lot of times we tend to be a little overrated in the beginning of the year because it brings eyes to it, but then a little underrated, as the year goes on sometimes. It's just a weird thing, but I'm not real worried. As long as we win, John, I'm not worried at all about us making the playoffs at this point. And let's go back weeks. When I told everybody, when everybody was talking to Fire Freeman after the NIU loss, I'm like, let's just let this season unfold and see what happens. I said, we're at a time where I don't think you're going to see a lot of undefeated teams anymore. Or if you do, maybe it'll be in those the next group of five, whatever they call that. I always forget the name of it. Situations like that, or maybe the ACC here and there, just because the competition isn't as tough. But you're not going to see. It's not going to be we're seeing it right before our eyes, man. This has been such a competitive season. I mean, you take the number one team in the country. Let's use Texas A&M as an example. I think they're ranked 15th this year. And, Oregon against A&M, I think, let's say they played at A&M. I think A&M could beat Oregon. I'm not saying they're better than Oregon. I'm just saying on any given Saturday, these people saying, I see the Georgias and Ohio State. They just look different in Notre Dame. Do they? Do they really? I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that. I'm talking to the Notre Dame I'm seeing right now. And again, they could fall again. No question. They could have another, just like, what are you doing type of game? Like where they just aren't interested or something, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but my God, we've been proven wrong before, but I'm looking at these teams and they don't seem overwhelming. They just don't. I mean, I'm not scared of Oregon or Ohio State or Georgia. Maybe Georgia. I think that's still the one team. They just loaded so much in the last few years. I still think when push comes to shove, I'm going to pick them to win the title this year. I just think that they're loaded, man. And yeah, they may come uninterested to play once in a while, but I think as that November goes on and then December gets here and we're into the playoffs, that's still my pick to win the title this year. But my point is, John, on any given Saturday, I think anybody can beat anybody that's like a top 15 caliber team. That's what's looking like to me this year.
Rodney, do you? So yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see where we fall tomorrow. What do you think about Florida State? It is the weirdest thing to go from undefeated last year, flying high with all your complaints you didn't get into the tournament, and now they can't win a game. They can't do anything right. Their offense is not good. The defense is not good. The quarterbacks are not good. Nobody's playing good. They don't do anything right. Everybody's given up on them. What do you make? This is the weirdest vibe I can ever remember a Notre Dame Florida State game.
It's like John, it was like a line in the sand. It's like night and day difference. After they didn't get selected last year, it's like everything went down from there. I mean, everything just fell completely apart after that. It's weird to see a coach who seemed to be building that program up and had success elsewhere. I mean, remember Charlie Weiss's 3-9 year, in 2007. My God, this team looks worse than that. And I thought that was one of the worst teams. I mean, that's definitely the worst Notre Dame team I'd ever seen. And then they started kind of playing better the second half of the year, even when they were losing. I was like, okay, maybe we're getting a little better now. But this is weird. It's just strange to me, John. It's strange to see a team loaded like that. Again, when I say loaded, I mean relatively speaking. For a 1-8 team, they're loaded. If you want to look at the record. It's just, I don't know, man. How many players did go to the NFL? How many did they lose the transfer portal? I didn't look into any of that.
A lot. I mean, they're okay. They had a heavy portal team last year, which was a big part of their success, and the quarterback, and they had, they had really good portal additions, but it couldn't fall off this much. This is a coaching messaging issue too. You don't end up.
John. It's strange.
Listen, I know Florida State's got enough talent
interested to play. They don't.
No. They do nothing.
11 points this last week. It's like, what?
Rodney.
It's just like, you can honestly see it would be the most Notre Dame thing in the world this weekend. They play them here. And we just don't, maybe we just barely win or something.
Listen to this stat.
They play their best game of the year.
Listen to this stat. Now, I understand that you lost Morrison, and that is a big hit to the Notre Dame defense. However, Notre Dame's still playing good defense. I would like to submit.
Leonard Moore is stepping up, man. Leonard Moore looks like Ben Morrison. If I didn't know any difference, I'd be like, that's Ben Morrison right there.
I would like to submit this statistic. Florida State has not scored 21 points or more in any game this year. It's almost unbelievable. They have not reached 21 or more in any game this year. And Rodney, the thing is, you would figure like, okay, if you have a horrible defense or a horrible offense and offensive line and quarterback play, fine, you're not going to move the ball. You would figure you would accidentally get turnovers or a pick six or a scoop and score.
Right.
Like you would accidentally, how do you not even accidentally get a turnover, a picked off tip ball and get 7 points on accident? They have not even been able to score 21 points. It is an absolute total dumpster, man. Total dumpster.
I know. I know. When I heard you say that the other day, when you said I couldn't believe. I had to go back and look. I'm like, is he right? I'm like, oh my God, he's right. What? That just blows my mind. It's like that whole program, man, just fell. The bottom literally fell out of nowhere. How do you go from playing as well as they did last year up into that final
I don't
polling,
know.
Right?
It's bad.
Undefeated, John. Undefeated team. And then at that Georgia game and the bowl, the game against Georgia, everything has just collapsed. I've never seen a collapse like this in the history of watching college football. Never seen anything like it.
Look at this. Willie B. Hardigan says, Florida State 17, Notre Dame 10. I'm telling you, the answer to your screen name is never again if that happens, Willie B. Hardigan. If they beat us 17-10, never again. It's all over for you, buddy. Tex ND has a good point. We single-handedly revived Clemson last year. They were dying. That is actually a very good point by Tex ND. Clemson was down, waiting for us to put him out, and we did breathe life.
Okay, they were down, but come on, John, they weren't down.
Yeah, it was a different
3 losses.
Yeah, it was a different level.
Like
it was a different level of down. But I do want to point out that is a good point. They were begging to be put out, and we gave them life, and I'm still mad about it. So
true.
Rodney,
that's true.
I don't know, buddy.
That's the closest thing, really, you can. Well, hell, you could look at Northern Illinois, I guess, right? I mean, look at Northern Illinois. I don't know. I haven't really followed them. I guess they've won a few games since they look like they were after they beat us. I don't know what their record is, but that would probably be the closest thing. John, my whole thing is, and I'm not, again, nothing's set in stone. This thing's always fluid, but it does seem like I can't see Notre Dame just now falling apart. I just don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would. I almost think it would have to be Florida State just absolutely decided to come play. I just don't see us. I'm just going, even the next 4 games, I'm not just talking about Florida State. I just can't. This team seems to be really clicking. I mean, defensively, God bless him, man. God bless, Golden. He's such a good coach. I mean, to sustain the number of losses on that defensive side of the ball and to just not skip a beat at all. I mean, Leonard Moore, definitely future All-American for sure. I mean, and then the other side of the ball, I think the unsung coach on that side is Rudolph, man. What he's done with that line, considering that's really an incredible coaching job he's done. They really solidified that line. Playing decent. They're not like a great offensive line, but John, with all those injuries, they should have been pretty damn bad. And he's really coaching those guys up. So
if you look at our run efficiency numbers since that Purdue game where we lost a couple more linemen, it's actually Notre Dame's moving back up into like yards per carry and a lot of those running game statistics. They're actually moving back up to where the numbers are actually pretty darn solid, but it did take some time. And so it's interesting. What else you got, Rodney? Anything on the way out? Thanks for touching base, buddy. I miss you being a part of the show.
Oh yeah, man. And I will be. It's just the scheduling, man. That's the only reason I don't ever skip. If I can call in, I will call in. But just one of the things I was going to say, it was just going to be about the transfer portal. I think we have to understand a lot of times when it comes to a team not being up to par or whatever, it's not necessarily all the overall talent you have, right? It's where that talent's fit. Like you can have a gaping hole in one area, and that can kill your season. That can, a cornerback or something goes down. You got no one behind him, and now they're throwing to that side of the field and getting touched. Look at the Clemson game a few years ago. When Jeremiah Love goes out, that game just completely got away from us because he went out. And we've been talking about the quarterback position for years at Notre Dame. I think what's happening is you're seeing these teams like Indiana and the BYUs and the SMUs and whatever. They're finding ways to fill gaps that were major problems. So it's not like they're bringing in a ton of talent, but they're bringing in the right players to fit the right positions they need to fill in those holes. And it's really become what teams can do that the best. Obviously, depth is going to matter, especially when we get deep into the playoffs and that kind of thing, and deep into the season. And so I just think it's really, really fascinating that what a lot of people were worried about was that this 12-team playoff is going to just make things even more watered down. It's looking like the opposite, John. It's looking like this is like some of the best college football I've seen in years, man. It's just anyway. Obviously, I wouldn't be as fascinated if we were like had 4 losses. I'd be pretty checked out, to be honest with you. But the fact that we're right in the mix right now, this has really been a fun season, and it's only going to get more exciting as we go along here.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and we're going to get a lot of information tomorrow night. We're going to figure out how this group is. Well, you got to figure out your baseline of where this group is valuing Notre Dame's resume at, and we'll go from there. Good luck with the play and everything. I know you're working hard on that and the band and everything else you got going. So you live an interesting life, Rodney, and good luck to you with all that stuff, man.
Thanks a lot, John. Always good to talk to you, man.
Yep. Have a good one, buddy. Really creative mind, Rodney. I like him. I like him in the mix, man. He's in a band and always practicing for that. He's in plays, doing all that stuff. It's really interesting. So I don't know. And Ronald, what am I saying that's so wrong? I'm telling you, you sit here and you're taking Commander Luke's role of being the negative guy. Every single thing you say is negative, and I'm an idiot, and every single thing I say I disagree with. Do you want to call in and debate some of this stuff, or are you just going to sit there? Again, I picture you sitting there dressed like actual Ronald McDonald, typing away on a laptop, waiting for every word I or anybody says so you could say you're an idiot. I'm just picturing Ronald McDonald sitting there like with like a Happy Meal or something. You're just sitting there like, I'm gonna get John on this one. I'm literally picturing his name's Ronald McDonald. I just picture the full costume, and he's sitting there typing, I'm gonna get him on this one. He's just trolling away but he's a literal clown. It's funny. And I don't know if Ronald McDonald's name is really Ronald McDonald or if that's the bit. Because if it was a bit, wouldn't Ronald McDonald not have the R as the logo, but have a picture of the Ronald McDonald clown? If this was a bit, you would think you would go the other. If you're going to make that name as a bit, the next step would be you got to put the picture of the clown there. So maybe the guy's name is really Ronald McDonald. And listen, my name's John Kennedy, so I understand what it's like to be born into a famous name. I would rather have mine be John Kennedy than Ronald McDonald, but I understand what it's like to be born into a name other people recognize for other reasons. Nobody understands that more than me, trust me. Now, Tex ND. If your name was Michael McDonald, we could have a whole different discussion. I keep forgetting Penn State can't beat Ohio State. I keep forgetting Northern Illinois beat us at home. I keep forgetting. Anyways, if it was Michael McDonald, that's a different story. 949, you're on the line. Bruce, I got you next. Mark, I got you after that. What's going on, 949?
Calling from inside your phone to bring you the Always Irish weather window for Saturday. And we're inside the Irish weather window. It's sometimes cloudy, but always bright. So we have a high of 56, a low of 37. However, the 37 will be at between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. The high will be 56 between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. It'll be about 50 degrees at kickoff. And speaking as a Florida boy, I can tell you that's still pretty cold for Floridians. So
yeah,
looking at, go ahead,
dude. They are just so done. I just don't think they want to play this game. Like, I understand the thought of like them rising up and this is the one thing they can have is to ruin your year or whatever, and that's all they have left. I genuinely believe they're just so far down, they might even be past that point, man. Like, I just think they might be so done with this season and they're just done and beyond that point. And then you get off you got to go to the middle of Indiana, and then you get off the plane and it's kind of cold and you're 1-8 and like you suck. Like, I'm fully prepared for them just not to show up. They're so bad at football, man. They don't do anything good enough. Nothing.
We've switched roles. Normally, I'm very positive, and you are nervous Nelly, and we've just switched places.
But they're off the radar, man. But the only way that I end up here is because of the unique circumstance. I'm always worried about everything in Notre Dame land. I am. That's my role here. But they are so bad at football and checked out. It's just sickening.
And that's what worries me, because their win was good against a decent Cal team. Cal is a formidable opponent. They beat them. And
what about the other 8? What about the other 8 weeks now? They played 9 games. What about the other 2 months?
I know, but here's the thing. You said that we've had this circled on our calendars from last year. I'm sure they have too, and now they either quit or they come out and give it one last fight.
Yeah.
Before Florida.
Okay, now wait. All right. I totally get where you're coming. I like this. This is healthy. I totally get what you're saying. Here's the second question, though. Let's assume they are motivated. Let's assume they are properly motivated to play this football game in South Bend, Indiana. The next question is, physically, are they even good enough to rise up and do anything to Notre Dame? Like, I'm just asking, dude, they are so bad. Their own beat media guys are saying there's no group on the team is playing quality football. They have no bright spots. I take it back. Their place kicker. Their place kicker has made, I think, every kick and a few past 50 yards. They always laugh and say he is the only one who's doing his job on the whole team is the place kicker. And since they never score touchdowns, he gets a lot of work. So the kicker is the only bright spot they've had, and he makes long field goals.
Which is an abnormality in itself, because Florida State is known as wide right U.
Yeah, but again, maybe I'm an idiot, because who am I to ask, is Florida State even good to rise up and beat Notre Dame? Even at 1-8, I know Florida State has more talent in their program than Northern Illinois, and they had no problem coming into Notre Dame and winning. So maybe I should just shut up.
We're through terms, so the boys are sharp. They're going to be rested, and I got to believe that Marcus has got them fired up. He's so dangling NIU in front of them every week, little bits and clips, and keep them hungry. We have to get out in front early and stay there and just punch them in the mouth and don't let them up.
Yeah, they are offensively, they are so challenged. I would like to think Notre Dame's defense has a terrific day. Offensively, Notre Dame should be able to run the ball all over these guys. As far as this final 4 games you have, this is a beautiful setup, a beautiful ramp. You had this week off to recenter yourself, recalibrate, focus on what's ahead of you. It is should be a really comfortable introduction into November football for Notre Dame. And I expect Notre Dame to just mash these guys. They're just so bad. It's unbelievable.
Indeed. And looking at the schedule, speaking of schedule, Ohio State and Indiana are going to play each other at the end of the year. A blowout on either side is going to knock one of them out. And then also, and I hate to say this word, but Meat Chicken plays both teams. Hate to root for them, but they always pull one out of their butt, and maybe they could knock one or both
Yeah.
there too.
No, if you think about it, I had the same thought last week. It was Michigan and Oregon, and I'm looking at Michigan with all those losses, saying even if they beat Oregon, it isn't going to help them. They're already out of the chase. Like, can you do somebody a solid, And then now it's Indiana, and I want to see what Indiana does. I could see Indiana pulling away from these guys though, and it'll be interesting. I don't know what we're going to get.
Yeah, either if Michigan wins, I'll be okay, but I'll still be rooting for them to lose by 1,000.
Yeah. What's your rooting interest in Alabama against LSU with one of them's getting 3 losses on the year? What do you want to happen in that one?
LSU can never lose enough games as long as Brian Kelly's the head coach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I don't like Alabama.
Yep.
But the meteor is not going to strike. So, like they say, high tide.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. The only thing that sucks is that game's going on the same time as our game, so you're really not going to be able to watch it that closely unless maybe Notre Dame's killing Florida State by enough. You could just turn it over and watch on the other channel. So I don't know. So I don't know what we're going to get from this committee tomorrow. I don't know what we're going to get out of the rest of the year. All I know is Notre Dame has 4 winnable games. They're going to be favored in all 4, and you need to win them all. That's all I know. And I'm telling you right now, we have a way to go. I don't care how many losses USC has. That is not going to be an easy trip out to LA to end the year. It's just not. I don't care if they have 5 or 6 losses by that time or whatever. I just don't see it. It's going to be a tough game going out there.
Yeah, especially after you're in New York City on the week before, doing the old Newt Rockney, at least they're not going to be on the train.
Yeah, it's that is the ultimate Rockney round trip. There is New York to play Army and then all the way to the Coliseum to play LA. Definitely not on train, and the plane they'll be on is a little more sturdy than the 2x4s that Rockney was riding on.
That's for sure. And tomorrow you mentioned Super Tuesday. It's Super Tuesday in a lot of ways. We need to heal the nation, and the only way to heal the nation is put Notre Dame in the playoffs.
Well, we'll see what they're going to do. It'll be really, really interesting to see where we fall firstly. Anything on the way out? Thanks for touching base, my friend. Really appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. I put the Chicago boys. There's a great video. It's a podcast with Stams and Stonebreaker and Wes Pritchett. And there's a great episode. I put it underneath the tweet for this show. I linked it there. You'll enjoy it because they're all Chicago boys.
I love it,
Everybody else will enjoy it just because it's, these are just, guys, Chicago boys that are off the chain, and their thoughts are unfiltered, and they're funny and insightful, and it's a good throwback. So enjoy that.
Awesome, man. Hey, I really appreciate it. And it's going to be interesting. So we'll see what happens. We're getting down to the line here, man. November football, everything matters more than it usually does. Thanks for the call.
Absolutely. Go Irish.
Go Irish. Have a good one. Bruce, you're coming up. John, it's really $5 hour from Adam. John, it's really important. We make Notre Dame Stadium electric Saturday night. Multiple big-time recruits will be there. That's another point. Is what does Florida State coming into this being so bad, what effect does that have in the environment and the Notre Dame crowd and the stadium and the vibe in that building? I don't know the answer to that. Is it they're down, we're in a playoff chase, we could put them out, it's going to be the place is on fire? Or is it going to be, I don't know, it's kind of cold and it's night and we're kind of chilly and these guys aren't really good enough to get our excitement up, so we're just kind of sleepwalking into here. What's it going to be? I don't know the answer to that. So I could see it being kind of like lame because they're bad and there isn't that excitement. I don't know what to expect with that. Ronald, I'm not going to disagree with you. The Northern Illinois loss is atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. And we may end up finding out that even if Notre Dame ends up at 11-1, the one couldn't be that one, and it could prohibit Notre Dame from having a favorable seed and a hosting situation in round one of the playoff. I don't know. That could very well happen. And can I really complain about it that much? You can't lose to Northern Illinois. Even if you win every other game by 50, you can't lose to Northern Illinois at home. And if you lose to Northern Illinois at home, sometimes there are consequences. So I don't know. Bruce! What's going on, Bruce?
John, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing very well. There's just a lot of interesting things in the world of college football, Bruce. There's a lot. It's heating up. We're in the final month of the season. What do you make of any of the topics in play today, man?
All right, so here's the deal. I was thinking about all this as you were speaking, and we are content creators. We cover sports, and we do this, right? And so, what we've got to realize first, obviously, the first college football playoff rankings, they do matter because that shows even if you're outside of the 12, how far you need to come to be able to make the 12. All right, cool. But here's the real deal. We always have to remember, and this is the part we keep forgetting, this thing is a TV show. It is a TV product as much as it is an on-the-field competition thing, right? So once they get between the lines and they play the game, yeah, there's that. And, that's the competition portion. But up until that part, it is a TV product. And especially with what else is happening in our country tomorrow night, which was obviously the elections, we have to take with a grain of salt what the first college football playoff gives us, because they are going to want to do everything they can possibly do. Because I can't imagine they realized that they did this on the same night as the election. So now you're probably going to see some outlandish things to drive some attention and drive some talking because they're lining up right against the biggest event in our country.
That is an interesting angle. That is a really, really interesting angle. Do you actually think they would go so far to think that deviously, like we got to really do something to generate a little spark here compared to what we're going up against? You really do? Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Listen, John, you know now as well as I do, doing this thing and doing it on a larger level than me, that this media thing is no joke. And you always have to think about what you're up against, right? There have been times, and obviously it's not intentional, but there have been times that I've done my normal Saturday night show and I look up and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to miss, there's going to be a couple of people missing out of my chat because I bumped directly up against you inadvertently, right? So like Always Irish has a bigger platform than I do right now. So, and that's fine. I love Always Irish, but it's going to cost me some viewers, right? Because when it comes to that, right? Or I might be doing my late night Sunday evening show where I go up and we run down all the NFL slate of the Sunday and the Thursday. And it's running right up against Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco nightcap.
Yeah.
So all these things get considered. And so when you're doing that stuff, obviously something like the college football playoff on such a large level, they're going up against the single biggest event in our country, possibly in this tomorrow night. And so they have to be cognizant of that. And they've got to do something to steal some eyeballs away or steal some attention away until the next week rolls around.
That's interesting. But they also don't they also have to kind of be careful though, because you can't do anything too crazy that boxes you in that you can't really navigate your way out of easily the next time around, right? That's the problem, right? Like they can't do anything too frisky to where it's hard to manipulate back out of it if you need to down the road. Like that's where I think it gets interesting.
No, that's true. But what we know is that when it comes to making sure that the SEC is satisfied, there's nothing that they won't do. They'll always find a way to be able to maneuver back out of that. And then on a slightly lesser level, the Big Ten. So they're not too concerned, and it's not going to be any, it's not going to be anything they can't get out of when it comes to those two conferences. So I think that's what the big deal is.
What do you think they do at Notre Dame, Bruce? What do they do at Notre Dame in this first one? It wouldn't
surprise me if somehow Notre Dame is just outside the top 12. Why? That's one of the biggest fan bases in the country. They travel extremely well. It'll be talked about. The Notre Dame people will be up in arms. Then you'll have people like Stephen A. and Paul Feinbaum on TV talking, their nonsense. And, well, if Notre Dame didn't, wet the bed against NIU, which is legitimate, right? But, you'll have that. I don't believe the A&M loss should hurt too much because A&M is technically still in the running to win the conference, right?
Yeah.
So that's should be hoping for. Obviously, Notre Dame winning out, but we should be really rooting for A&M to get to the SEC championship game and maybe even win the thing. Can you imagine the type of weight it would carry theoretically? What type of weight it would carry for Notre Dame to have a win over the SEC champion?
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Hypothetically, that happened. Yeah, hypothetically, let's say that happened. Here comes my anti-SEC piece coming in. All of a sudden, the goalposts will move, and that win won't mean as much because it's Notre Dame who did it, right? They'll say that, it was the first game of the season, and that wasn't the same A&M team we're seeing now, blah, blah, blah. They'll find a way to devalue that on Notre Dame's end because that's what they do. You have so many people complaining about the whole, why doesn't Notre Dame just join a conference? If you hate Notre Dame so much, moron, why don't you hope that they don't join a conference because it only makes it harder for them to win a championship? But let me not, I'm about to lose it. But anyway, so that's what I think about the first college football playoff rankings tomorrow night. Also, I saw a mock. I can't remember who did the mock. It was one of the major college football guys, and it had Notre Dame and Penn State in the first round, which I thought would be very interesting because that Penn State defense is really, really good, man. They just ran out of steam because their offense gave them nothing. But, and we know what that looks like, right?
It's a good point.
Yeah, that's the mock that I saw. Say again?
That's a really, really good point. It's kind of the overlap between how we look sometimes and how they're put together. Really, great. That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah. So, I saw that mock, and that mock has, let's say Notre Dame gets out of first round there, they would play Miami in the second round, which I'm like, okay, I could be a good matchup because I guess the assumption here is that Miami wins the ACC. Unless Clemson can pull off something crazy, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I got
Bruce,
on this thing right now.
Who you got?
Notre Dame just needs to do their work. What's up, John?
LSU or Alabama? Well, what do you think? It's going to be an interesting night. One of those teams is getting 3 losses, and Johnny Boy's here for it. Either way it goes.
So, no, I definitely got Bama here. I think Kalen DeBoer is a better coach than Brian Kelly. I do. Quick side notes referencing LSU. I was listening to, one of these podcasts. I got so many going through my head. But anyway, and now the narrative is that Brian Kelly is recruiting at LSU. I'm like, no. We know Brian Kelly doesn't like to recruit. And part of the reason I'm sure that he went to LSU is because he knows that LSU pretty much recruits itself in that state and in that part of the country.
That's the next thing I was going to say is
to do that.
Yeah, LSU is recruiting to LSU. That was what I was going to say too. Yeah, LSU is recruiting to LSU. Right. And by default, if you're the head man, you get credit for that. And Brian Kelly knows that. And it's very, very intelligent of him to do it this way. And he should get credit for it. That's what happens when you're the head man. But LSU recruits LSU. Everybody should understand that.
Yep. But here's another interesting note when it comes to LSU and Brian Kelly, and we as Notre Dame people should be cognizant of this. Let's just say LSU ends up with 3 losses this year and doesn't make the college football playoff, right? Brian Kelly could get fired. I haven't heard anything about him being on the hot seat, but remember, LSU is a program that fires national champions, right? They fired Ed O 1 year after having arguably the best college football team ever and winning a chip in record fashion. Would they fire Les Miles 2 years after winning a championship? These guys don't play around down there. The expectation is bring it home. Was it their last 3 head coaches prior to Brian Kelly have won national championships?
Man,
right?
That's 3 years.
So they have no hesitation.
Ooh, 3 years, man.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me because they have no patience at LSU for not winning a title or not competing for one. Like, they will let you go. So it's something to keep our eyes on. If LSU should crash and burn, it wouldn't surprise me if Brian Kelly got fired. Maybe he gets 1 more year, maybe he doesn't. But that's just something to think about. But yeah, that's what I have. Yep. Thanks for the
Appreciate
time,
it,
John.
Bruce. Really appreciate it. Everybody, go check out the Format podcast. Bruce, thanks for starting your Monday here. Appreciate it, buddy. Going to be an interesting day tomorrow in a lot of ways. We'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Oh, man, we got that Barry White voice. Look at Jerry Reinsdorf's burner. John, trust me, sports are not about winning. They're about TV contracts. That is the truest thing you've ever said on this show, Jerry. I fully believe you on this one. I fully believe you on this one. Yeah, Kelly's not, I don't think Kelly's getting fired. But if he ends up with 3 losses, then people are going to get restless if he ends up with 3 losses. The funny thing is the LSU media contingent's getting backed into a corner. And if he gets a 3rd loss, it's really going to start to back them in a corner. What I mean by that is, so far, they're all saying, we're jealous that they stole our man. He's the best coach Notre Dame's ever had and everything. We're jealous. And that's the only reason we don't like him now is because we're jealous that that's their position. They all refuse to accept any of our tangible football reasons to not care that Brian Kelly's gone and not like him. So they refuse to admit any football reason we could possibly not like Brian Kelly. But it's going to get harder and harder and harder for them to maintain that position if Brian Kelly continues to not excel in the SEC. And it's pushing them in a corner. And I'm already feeling some of their content creators want to question Brian Kelly a little bit. But they know if they start doing it, it kind of proves our point and they don't want to do it. So they're putting off complaining about Brian Kelly and asking, shouldn't this be more put together at this point than it is? They don't want to do that because it starts to lend credence to our position, and they cannot admit we were right about this. So that's where I'm enjoying watching some of the LSU people squirm a little bit, because I think if you didn't have this Notre Dame dynamic, they would be a little bit more out there with their takes of questioning Brian Kelly. But they're not doing it because the last thing they want to do is put anything on the airwaves that makes it look like we were right for saying big game Brian, he ain't going to get you where you want to go. It's all about him and his ego, and he's a politician more than a coach. I don't know. We'll see. Mark with glasses, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
I got to follow Bruce.
Yeah, no, you better shine up those pipes, baby. Freaking Barry White on the line on a Monday.
I know. Well, a lot of comments in the chat after my last call said my call stunk and they didn't want me to come back. And I told them I'm coming back.
Well, wait a second. I don't remember that. You're Mark with glasses. Everything you do is fantastic. What do you mean? You're Mark with glasses. You get to do whatever you want.
I'm coming. I came and I'm back.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
What's that?
It's good to know. I hope your wife knows that. Anyways, what's on your mind?
What's on my mind is to wait for the rankings tomorrow. If anybody else had our resume, we'd be up in arms about it, just as we've done in the past, years when you've been splitting hairs, comparing teams, and I know it's been said, but our strength of schedule is getting worse by the week. And Saturday, 8 of our opponents played and 6 of them lost. And besides A&M and even them, they're going to end up 9-3. If you go through our schedule, we all know NIU, but Purdue and Florida State have 1 win. Stanford has 2 wins. Miami, Ohio, and Virginia are 4-4. Georgia Tech's 5-4. Louisville's got 3 losses. USC's 4-5. Navy's got back-to-back losses. And I feel like we're not going to have a leg to stand on if they kind of get down to splitting hairs with that strength of schedule. But I do think before it's all said and down, it might work itself out because teams kind of keep losing. So it might all be for nothing. And
so how does but Mark, how does the committee look? What do they do to Notre Dame, man? Because the last and the first rankings are the ones that really matter. The last ones for obvious reasons, and the first ones because it gives you the foundation of where these guys are thinking and what they're valuing or not valuing or penalizing or whatever. it's a big one tomorrow just to figure out where this committee's at with Notre Dame to begin with. You'll be able to get an idea of how they're thinking about them. What are you expecting? If they're right outside the top 12, it wouldn't surprise me with some of those other conference teams. It wouldn't surprise me. And do you get to complain when you lost to Northern? I don't know.
No, and I think they know that. I expect that they're gonna punish us because the committee's made up of people that all have ties to conferences, and the Big Ten and SEC run everything. So it's not like we have, much of a case to make. So that's how I expect it'll play out. And then we're just going to have to hope that everybody in front of us loses so that there'll be no way to.
You know what? My thought is, Mark, I'm going to say this again. I think they know 11-1, you got to keep Notre Dame in, but I think they'll do everything they can to make it tough matchups and keep Notre Dame out of a hosting seed. That would be my prediction, is to do enough to look like you're being fair to Notre Dame by including them. But I genuinely think they're going to play games to keep Notre Dame out of favorable matchups down the bracket and keep them out of a home seed if they can do it. That would be my guess, because there's no way this committee full of conference partisan people led by a Michigan guy is going to do Notre Dame any damn favors. There's just no way. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and I got to look at my notes here. Jay Carr said I got to start taking notes. So like Andrew said in the chat, the grass is not always greener. And like if you look around at what's going on this year, like Lincoln Riley is 12-12 his past 24 games. Dabo's championship feels like it's 20 years ago. Nobody likes James Franklin. Jay's living off by the seat of his pants. And then Notre Dame fan favorite Luke Fickell is 5-4 and 12-9 at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Norval's won one of his last 10 games. And like we're so overcritical of the job that Freeman's doing. And like with the good stories this year, like I know everyone loves that Signetti, but to me, I don't like the guy. He hasn't beat a ranked team. He's getting too big for his britches, running his mouth all the time. I hate to root for Michigan, but I got to root for Michigan because I'm sick of Indiana.
It's going to be, listen, Mark, I want to give them credit because the style that they play with is beating the crap out of everyone, and it looks really good week to week. But they have not played anybody that I'm impressed with at all. Like, I'm sorry, they just have not. So if you Michigan, even a down Michigan, I'll start to look at you a little different. But they are impressive, but they also have not played anybody where I'm like, I'm that impressed.
Yeah, they're going to play one ranked team all year, Ohio State. And I'm just kind of sick of the guy. I'm sick of his arrogance. And it's easy to, pass like this when you're winning and your schedule is as it is. And I just kind of want to, and then on the other shoe, the Oregon's coach, that Lanning, I'm a real big fan of him. I kind of like his style and the stability that he has, and I think similar to that, like with his energy and that. And I think Freeman's biggest obstacle to kind of having our confidence be like that is winning these cupcake games. I think that problem's a lot more fixable than a lot of the other ones that could exist. So
yeah, it depends on how you look at it. Yeah, it depends on how you look. It's I don't know, man. It's just so, the Northern Illinois thing, you just knew when it happened. Even if they run the table somehow, you're gonna have to pay the price, man. That is not a normal loss. That is not a regular run-of-the-mill loss. You're gonna pay a price for it. And we're just gonna have to see what it is, and then you just keep winning, and then hope people fall out in front of you, knock each other out. I don't know how else to look at it.
Yeah, that's what I think will happen. And I got Notre Dame 38, Florida State Criminals 13.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, they are really, really down and out and bad at football. And so I'm open for a big night for Notre Dame, and then we'll see what goes on with LSU and Alabama. We'll flip back and forth and see. Anything else, Mark? Thanks for joining me. Thanks for the notes. I'm impressed.
Yeah, hopefully I did a little bit better and people aren't bitching. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, I wouldn't worry. I mean, who cares what people think, Mark? A lot of these people will never call in, and then they judge the people that do. You ever think about that? Like that, it's really easy, but it's really easy to criticize people when you're not on the air, or to like correct me for saying one thing when I do 12 hours of live streaming a week. You make one mistake and people are nailing you for it. Like, it's really easy to criticize when you're not the one calling or doing all this. I've noticed.
Oh yeah, I'll keep coming.
I appreciate it, Mark. Never go away. And somebody asked when you're going to turn into Mark with contacts. When are you going to turn into Mark with contacts or Mark with LASIK? When are you going to do that?
I might do that the next tailgate so nobody recognizes me.
There you go. I like it. Hey, Mark, God bless you, my friend. Have a good week.
All right, later. Bye.
Take care, buddy. I love that man. He is very, very creative. Notre Dame's wine and cheese. Coke or Pepsi? Coke. To me, Dr. Pepper's good too. I'll drink a Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper and Coke, I like equally. It depends on my mood. Pepsi literally tastes like what I imagine motor oil tastes like. It is not good. I cannot understand. You ever go to a restaurant, you ask for a Coke, and they go, "Oh, is Pepsi okay?" Well, no, it's not. If it was, I would have said Pepsi. What do you mean? No. What is Pepsi okay? No. It tastes like garbage, and the other one tastes good. So, no, it isn't okay. I'm telling you, there's something wrong with Pepsi. There's something wrong. It doesn't taste right. What do you mean? Is a Pepsi okay? Now, it tastes like what I imagine motor oil tastes like. And I don't like it. Here's something else I don't understand. This must be a down south thing or something. How do they call down south every pop they call a Coke? I don't understand it. When there's a brand called Coke down to, where is it? Chattanooga, somewhere where my part of the family lives, in the hills of Chattanooga somewhere. And you go out to eat with them or whatever, but everything's give me a Coke. How can you just ask for a Coke when there's 20 different brands that are all their own thing, but it's all a Coke? I don't understand that. I don't understand how they all call it everything a Coke. Everything can't be a Coke when there's a specific brand name of pop called Coke. You can't just say Coke. Dr. Pepper's good. Coke is good. Pepsi is, I'll drink a Mr. Pibb. So that's similar enough to Dr. Pepper. I'll drink that. But there's something wrong with Pepsi, man. You cannot drink a Coke. It's crisp. There's something wrong with Pepsi. I don't like it. There's something wrong with Pepsi. I don't like it. Pat gave up. He gave up his the pop for Lent one year in college and never went back. Well, Pat, that's brilliant. You give up the pop, and then that gives you a reason to drink another Miller Lite. You got to drink something, and it isn't going to be the pop, so you may as well. So then you just drink another beer, and then you're honoring your Lent obligation, and then you can just keep drinking beer. It's beautiful. I love it. Now people are talking about like a root beer. I'll drink a root beer, but that's a few times a year, right? I'm not going out of my way to get a root beer, but I'll drink one once in a while or something. I don't know. Oh boy. 716, you're in the mix. If I can hit the button, what's going on? 469 after that, 570 after that. What's going on, 716?
Well, I've been doing a couple of things, and I'll tell you, he was just talking about Kirk Segnetti, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. If you've ever looked this guy's resume up, oh my goodness, I'm amazed at what this guy has done. If you just think about this for a second, he was a quarterback at West Virginia between 79 and 82. He was Chuck Amato. He joined Chuck Amato's staff at NC State in 2000. He coached quarterback Phillip Rivers. He recruited Super Bowl champion quarterback Russell Wilson to the Wolfpack before joining Nick Saban's staff. At Alabama, He was original member of Saban's Alabama coaching staff. So Saban thought enough of him to bring him on for his first staff. And he coached wide receiver Julio Jones and recruited Heisman Trophy winner Mark Ingram II and linebacker Dante Hightower, and all members of the 2008 recruiting class, which featured 6 first-round NFL draft choices. So that's a pretty good resume to start out with, I'd say.
That is a pretty good resume.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
Really,
listen, I'm fine with having a different team in the Big Ten mix. I'm going to keep mentioning, though, they have not played anyone that I am impressed with, but the style of play they're beating people with, I love, but I'm just going to mention, I look at who they've beaten and I'm not impressed. So I like what they're doing, but I want to see them do it against better teams. That's all.
Well, isn't that really JMU, Indiana? Because when he came over, he recruited all the stars basically from JMU, and they're still winning at JMU, but he brought a lot of them guys with him.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but who's the biggest win? But who's their biggest win? Is it Nebraska? Like, I don't know, like, what is their biggest win? Because it looks to me like it's Nebraska right now, and I'm not that impressed. So, but if they get pounded on Michigan, I'll start to think a little bit more of it, probably because my personal animus for that team. But I just want to see them do it against some better teams. That's all. But they're doing a good job. It's nice to see them mix up the Big Ten. Mix up the Big Ten a little bit. I like that.
Yeah, so let's leave it at yet to be determined. How's that?
Yeah, that's fair, but they're doing a good
yet
job.
To be determined.
The way they play, I love. I like
calls.
looking at it. They beat the crap out of people. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, I was listening to the calls this morning. I like the gentleman you had on, the Barry Manilow reference, because he has such a deep voice, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, made a lot of sense. But I was just some of the things you guys covered this morning. You think about how far Florida State has fallen. How about how far Michigan has fallen from winning the national championship? Think about that for a second.
Yeah, it's
Michigan has got what, 3 losses, 4 losses?
It's very, very frustrating to me, and the time frame here of being very average, not getting over the hump. Then you have Connor Stallions, and you almost never lose a game. And then once they leave, it all falls apart again. I cannot help but to logically follow the timeline and ask some real questions. But that's just me. What do I know?
Yeah, you're talking about the guy that was stealing the signal, right?
Yeah, I am, because you were mediocre before him. You were mediocre before him. You're mediocre after him. And when he was there, you couldn't be beat. So I don't have to be a genius to just look at what happened.
Well, yeah, now think about this. I'm trying to think of a running back. Was it Davis from Southern Cal in 72? When Arrow went out there and he scored 6 touchdowns. I'm trying to think if it was touchdown
6.
Davis. Anyways, what happened was they stole actually the signs that Notre Dame was using. The story is that they knew exactly what Notre Dame was going to do because somebody was able to figure out what they were signaling. And that's how they ended up scoring all the touchdowns. It's because they knew what was coming. And they did it during the game. My understanding is
interesting.
Somehow somebody's smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah, but see, like,
but you were around in 72.
if you did it during the game like that, and you figured out a way to steal those signs, I look at that completely differently than going undercover in spy gear and recording. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not against sign stealing. I'm against, you got to do it. It's how you do it. It's not the sign stealing. It's the methodology you do to do it. Anyways, I don't want to make it all about Michigan. I would love for Indiana to pound them, but if Michigan beat them and then that helps Notre Dame, I'll be okay with that too, because Michigan's not a threat to Notre Dame because they have too many losses. So if that happens, I'm fine with it. What do you make of LSU and Alabama? What are your thoughts on that this week?
Okay, well, let me just finish this, what I'm going to run through. So you look at Penn State, and Penn State is overrated. I told that to my friend. I told you I got a guy go to church who was a walk-on defensive tackle in 72 to 76. And I said, Rick, you guys never should have won the Southern Cal game. They literally mugged the receivers on the 2 times that they went out. There should have been pass interference both times. So I said, I'm not even going to count that as a win for you. I said, that was over. Now, I didn't get a chance to talk to him yesterday because, of course, he was at the game Saturday. And I talked to a couple of guys. I said, man, do we need to read Rick last rights or what? I said, scoring just 2 field goals?
Yep. Not a
And you're
touchdown.
ranked 3rd in the country?
Not a
They're
touchdown.
overrated. I think Ohio State is overrated. I don't think they really. I mean, look at Nebraska. They could have lost that game very easily. And if Penn State is twice in the red zone and can't get anything out of it for a touchdown, come on, 1st and 10 inside the 5 twice, and you get nothing for a touchdown.
Yep.
I'm thinking no. I think their 2 teams are overrated. Now, as far as Texas A&M losing, South Carolina should have beat Alabama if you watch the game. They have a lot of talent on that team, and I think they're going to make some noise towards the end. And I look at that, and yeah, like they said earlier, if Texas A&M wins the SEC championship, you can't say, well, Notre Dame played at the beginning of the season and they were a different team. Well, Notre Dame's a different team now too.
Yeah.
So,
and it is really important to note. It is important to note that while A&M has 2 losses now, they only have 1 in conference, and they are still eligible.
Right.
Yeah, and they are still perfectly eligible for a SEC title game appearance, if not winning it. With the 1 loss. Now they still have Texas coming up, so that's going to be a big challenge. But it is important to note that all of your leverage isn't necessarily lost because they lost, but they gotta bounce back now.
Right. Now the thing is, that means there's no undefeated teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
None. They're not undefeated in house play. So that brings me to this. Think about the upset Vanderbilt had this year. Okay. And then they almost knocked off Texas. They had a chance to beat Texas. So you're looking at a lot of things that are happening. A lot of things are happening, I think, because of the portal. I think that's why we've seen things change. And then this is the 2 things I can't stand. Over the weekend, when they were doing if you watch the Ohio State Penn State game, the announcer made the fact, and it wasn't Gus Johnson, it's the one that has the talk show. He said they were talking to the officials before the game, and the officials said, we're just going to let them play. Whoa, wait a minute. I was an official at Works High School playoffs, major. I mean, and I'm thinking, I never heard that. We're not going to let them play. If it's a rule at the beginning of the year, it's a rule at the end of the year. And the number 1 criteria that an official has to hold himself to is you officiate the game and interpret the rules so one team does not get an unfair advantage against the other. So now you're going to say, well, we're just going to let them play. Why even have officials then? Why don't you just let these guys, like a backyard game or a pickup game on Thanksgiving, just let them play and see who wins the game? Of course, you'd probably have a fan outbreak, which was crazy at the Clemson game. I just reminded myself of that, throwing the water bottles, and the cheerleaders had to move. Did you see that? When
Yeah,
they
I
threw
did.
the water bottles at the Clemson game?
Yeah, I did.
That was totally what, you're having a bad year and you got to throw water bottles?
Yeah, I don't.
Come on.
That's becoming a
They got
trend.
exposed.
We've seen that a couple times this year. It's becoming a trend.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bad look.
Yeah, and the thing is, they got exposed as being a fraud because they never really played anybody. And that's why I believe the Penn State, Ohio State game revealed that 2 of them, to me, are not who they should be. So then I looked at, I don't want to hear anything about NIU anymore, though. It's a bad loss, yes, but let's put it to bed and leave it there and let the committee decide what they're going to do with it. Louisville helped us out by proving Clemson being a fraud. And so the thing here is this. I look at the game this weekend. It's a tough choice to say, who would you rather see lose? Would you rather see LSU lose or Alabama? Well, if Alabama loses, they certainly can't be picked because that'll give them 3 losses. And I think LSU's already done. I don't think they got a chance to get back into anything and be in the mix. But Alabama could some way, somehow, maybe crazy, get in there, which wouldn't help. But I'm looking for some things to happen down the road in that conference too, because like you said, you got Texas and Texas A&M, which is going to be at A&M, so that gives them home field advantage.
Yeah.
But I look at the overall picture is this: we have to hope that if you have a playoff in a conference between 2 teams that are undefeated, which team would you rather have lose? Or let's hope that so right now, the only team that's looking at possibly, well, two conferences are looking at possible undefeated championship games. The Big Ten with Oregon and Indiana, and the other one would be SMU and Miami. So if you could have one of those teams of the four, one of the Big Ten teams lose, and one of the ACC teams lose, and then that team with the loss beats the team that's undefeated, now you're going to have some chaos. What are they going to do? So you'd rather have the undefeated team defeat the team with the one loss, because two losses are probably not going to get in from their conference.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I looked at, so look at the availability that you have in the 12. You've automatically got 5 positions gone.
Yeah.
For the 4 conference champions and the group of 5. So now you're down to 7 teams. What conferences could possibly send 2 teams? The Big Ten could send 2 teams. So now you're down to 6.
Yeah, Penn State's going to be in there. Penn State's probably not going to lose again, and they'll be in there then with their one loss.
Well, yeah, but they still have. Listen, if it comes down, if it could, you have to determine who's going to play in that championship game, because I think Penn State to me shouldn't even be where they're at. But anyways, time will tell that by what happens between Indiana and Ohio State. Who's going to go in and play for that championship game? So if you have 2 teams from the SEC, because I don't think they're going to take 3. If you had 2 teams, that brings us down to 6. If you had 2 teams from the ACC, that brings us down to 5 teams that are left. So are you going to get 2 teams from the Big 12? I don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so
Ohio
either.
State lost.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna. And there is a possibility that, like I said, you could get 2 teams from the SEC, and you could get, well, let's say so you got 2 teams SEC, 2 teams ACC, and then 1 team only from the Big 12. That leaves us with the Big Ten. If they got 2 teams, then that brings you down to what? 4 spots? If you do process of elimination, right? 5 automatic, 2 from the ACC. Well, I don't know if the ACC would get 2 in. They might, depending if it's Miami and SMU and it's a close game, and you could get 2. So let's say they got 2. That would take you down to 6 spots available. SEC gets 2, that takes you to 5 spots available, and the Big Ten gets 2, and that takes you to 4 spots left. Is Notre Dame capable of getting to one of those 4 spots, irregardless home game or not? I say yes. If you look at it that way.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be. I'm not smart enough to be able to do all them numbers you just did. I can't do it. It was hard enough with 4 teams. It's just a lot for me to keep in my simple brain of who needs to win or lose and how many teams have wins and losses and everything. Tomorrow's going to help me out a lot because it's going to give me a baseline. Final thing on the way.
It gives you a baseline.
Yeah, give me a baseline.
We didn't call it baselines. What did we used to call it at work? We called it, I'm trying to think what kind of line we called it. It wasn't baseline. It was something else.
Or like a foundation, just some sort of foundation. On the last thing I want to ask you on the way out is, what do you think about early thoughts on Notre Dame, Florida State?
Boy, I'll tell you, all those Florida teams scare me. I mean, they always scare me because at any given moment, something could happen and they could click. The thing is that Kelly's got to reinforce is, look, I Cheese would want us to play our second string because we wouldn't want to embarrass them too much, by beating them a lot with our first string. But unfortunately, they are a Division I Power 4 conference team. And regardless of what they are, because this is how I looked at the crybabies over the weekend. Oh, Ohio State's got to play with their third string tackle. Gosh, aren't we doing that? Left tackle too? Aren't we doing that? I heard them. Oh, Ohio State, they got the 2 starting tackles. Left tackles hurt. Now they got to play a guy. And then I heard the things about Oregon had that tough game against Ohio State. And then they had to go across country and play Purdue. And amazingly, it was their first shutout in I don't know how many years of playing an in-conference game or something, whatever the deal is. I'm thinking Notre Dame does that all the time. They travel.
Yeah.
That's the whole big thing about Notre Dame. They travel. So quit giving me your wine and cheese on all of that stuff. I mean, not an inference to the guy that we call that, but just why are they complaining?
Yeah.
Right? So, but Florida State just, I mean, the thing is you got to go out and play football and execute and win every play. I don't care if they beat them 60-0, 70-0. Go out and play your game because that's what it is. You got to play your game. They're expected to win by a lot. You can't go in the game thinking, well, this team has done nothing. You have to look at every opponent like they're an underdog and they got something to prove and win the one game of the year that would matter to them.
Yeah.
So Stevens just got to tell them. They're looking at this as their Super Bowl, guys. This is their game. If they can knock all of the teams out of the playoffs that they have to play, well, then that makes their season. And we don't want to be one of them.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good way to look at it, my friend. Thank you for your Monday thesis. I really do appreciate it, man. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Take care, man.
Bye.
Dude, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not smart enough to follow all this. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling you, when he's going, I got 4 teams in this conference, and then you add the 5 over here, and then you get this and this. And if this kid could beat this one, then that one will beat that one. I ain't smart enough to keep up with all this math. You kidding me? Too much math. $469, and then I got a 205 and a 570. $469, you're on the line. What up?
Hey, John.
What's going on, man? It's
on
good.
The road.
Yeah, you're on the road again, and it's good to hear from you.
Yeah, on the road in Nebraska, on my way to Utah. Yeehaw!
There you go, man. Well, safe travels. I hope you're getting across the country there safely. What's on your mind, man? You got the committee meets tomorrow. Any thoughts on what they'll do with Notre Dame? Any early thoughts on Florida State? What do you think?
Man, I got a bunch of thoughts. So I'll start with the ranking tomorrow. I hate to say it, but even the first ranking, I mean, other than being a talking point, it really doesn't mean anything. And the reason being is we've seen in the past that from week to week, that committee is going to rank whoever they want, wherever they want. And they're going to craft whatever talking points, whatever narrative to fit whatever ranking they've come up with.
Yeah.
And if they have to change from one week to the next, like, oh, we rank this team here because of this.
Yeah.
And then the next week, it'll completely change.
See, you're okay. No. I love this.
Teams completely change.
I love this. I thought of this exact angle because I'm going to record something that goes out tomorrow morning about previewing this. I thought of that too. They already do a bad job of keeping their ranking philosophy consistent when it's 4 teams. How in the hell are they not going to be able to crisscross their reasoning when it's 12? As far as them being like, well, we value this team did this, and that's why they're in. They don't do a good enough job being consistent with 4. How are they going to maintain philosophical consistency for 12? How?
I do believe that because of the NIU loss, and I do believe that because there are a number of teams that also have one loss, I think Notre Dame is probably going to be in a little bit lower position than what we as fans are thinking they deserve. But again, it really doesn't matter a hill of beans because if Notre Dame wins out, there's absolutely no scenario, no possibility, there's no circumstance, no reality, no universe in which Notre Dame is left out of a 12-team playoff at 11-1. There's no circumstance that happens because they are not stupid, and they are not going to cut off their noses to spite their faces in order to thumb it at Notre Dame fans because they just hate Notre Dame that much. Because the cash cow that is Notre Dame, just the Notre Dame fans watching, It's the cash cow that is the hate watching, which is what really drives the numbers and the TV viewership as far as Notre Dame games. And they're not leaving an 11-1 Notre Dame team out of the playoff. It's inconceivable that Notre Dame wins out and gets left out. So
yeah,
I think everything in front of them, just win.
Yeah, I think if I had to predict, my prediction would be 11-1 is definitely in, but they are going to finagle it and do whatever they can to make it as tough of a bracket run and keep Notre Dame out of a hosting seed. That would be my guess. So you do enough to look like you're being fair. Notre Dame's in the tournament, so you can't complain that much. But then set them up with a rough bracketology setup and do whatever you can to avoid a home game. That would be my thought. And I'm not saying that we deserve that or not. I don't know what's going to happen with the other games yet. I don't know whether Notre Dame should be able to get into the 8 slot and a host or not. I don't know that. Let's see what else happens with the other games. But Northern Illinois is not a normal loss. I can't repeat it enough. When it happened, I said it. Northern Illinois is not a normal loss. It's going to carry you around like a shadow, and there are consequences. That's just the reality, man. That was not a normal loss.
At some point, though, you just got to – I mean, the people that keep on bringing it up like we've forgotten, like, don't forget, you lost to Northern Illinois. I mean, at some point, shut the hell up. It was one game. It happened weeks ago. A whole bunch of games have been played since then. I think you can recognize that teams evolve and teams change and teams play bad games. It happens. But at some point, you got to recognize it for what it is. It was one game. And it's not like Notre Dame went out there and played their best game and lost to Northern Illinois, and Northern Illinois ended up proving to be a bad team like it is. That'd actually be far worse. If Notre Dame went out there and actually played a good game, lost that game, and then Northern Illinois goes on and stinks, then you've got a real problem, because then you're wondering how good it really is, Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's just, listen, I always entered this year saying Notre Dame has one loss in their pocket to play with for leeway, but it just couldn't be the Northern game. It just couldn't be one that's off the radar. And I just wonder how much it's going to be used against them. I don't know the answer to that, man. Is Notre Dame's one loss to Northern Illinois going to be looked at as worse than 2 SEC losses, but to decent teams? I don't know how they're going to look at this. I don't know.
No, and the reason being is that the playoff committee, they've shown in the past, they don't worry about losses. What they worry about is wins. Who did you beat? And one thing, they also don't worry about ranked wins. That's one thing they've talked about in the past. They don't worry about ranked wins. What they look at is wins over teams with winning records. And that's where Notre Dame is going to fare pretty well, is they're going to have a handful of wins against teams with winning records.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And you're the outlier, so like you don't just stack up in a conference where it's pretty obvious where you deserve to be respected or not. Like Notre Dame's just the total outlier in this, and I'm not sure what to expect tomorrow. But it's going to be really interesting. What about Florida State? What do you make of this game?
I wanted to make one last point about you saying that the one loss couldn't be against Northern Illinois. I'm actually going to push back on that, and I'm going to say that Northern Illinois is the best loss. And the reason being is because if you're not going to go 12-0, then you don't want your loss to be against a team that you can have to be able to prop up and say, hey, we beat a Power 4 team. That's a Power 4 team. So if you're going to have a loss, let it be a loss against the team that you're not going to get any credit for beating anyway.
The problem with that argument is I was more open to it if A&M would have won this weekend. I get what you're saying as far as like if you have a high-end win, it could say that this is just a fluke or whatever, but your high-end win just got less valuable, and that's the problem with looking at it that way.
A&M lost one game. You know what I mean? It's not like they were on the knife's edge as far as whether or not they're going to get in the playoff. They're still very much in the hunt for the playoff.
That's true. Yeah,
and now
that's
if
true.
that had been their third loss, then it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
You know, if
they got
if
Texas.
they lose again.
You got
to get their
Texas.
third loss, then it's a whole different story.
Hey, you got Texas coming up. So that game's going to tell you right away what these realities are. And they have one loss in the conference, and they could make it in the title, whatever. I'm just saying some of the shine came off your biggest win we've been bragging about because they didn't just lose. They got beat up pretty good against a very, very average South Carolina team. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. We'll see.
Okay, now Florida State. Okay, the difference as far as whether or not Florida State comes to play, okay, they come to play. That'll be the difference between Notre Dame beating them 56-3 or winning 28-10. There's no circumstance. Notre Dame would have to, have half their team go out and party, get drunk, and be hungover the next day, and half of them sick and not able to play in order for Florida State to actually win that game. There's just that team. It's not. They've got talent. They've actually got a pretty good amount of talent. Their problem is they're not playing well at all. They're not coached well. They're not playing well. They don't have a winning culture. And I hate to say it, I think the getting left out of the playoff last year just sucked the soul out of that program.
Yeah, it does seem like there is something to that.
And I think that it's it starts at the top. Their head coach, Norvell, for whatever reason, I don't think he was able to recapture, what needed to be recaptured for that team going into the offseason and preparing to be a championship team, Yeah,
it's
from top to bottom, they've just been abysmal.
Yeah, so it's going to be really, really interesting. I think Notre Dame is going to roll them, should roll them. I'm not. They're just down and ready to be out, and they don't do anything well. And Notre Dame's specifically on offense, they're very, very horrible. And Notre Dame's strength is its defense. And you're at home, the weather will be a little chillier than what these boys are used to. I think Notre Dame wins handedly, or something bad's happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, second point I wanted to, not second point, the next point I wanted to bring up is we're finally seeing the vindication of Notre Dame fans as far as Brian Kelly.
I want that third loss.
I
want that third loss.
When Brian Kelly was hired, yes, absolutely, it's coming this week. When Brian Kelly was hired, I predicted that he was not going to last through his third season.
Man,
I'm still predicting he is not going to last through his third season.
That is a quick hook on a 10-year guaranteed deal, man.
Well, the reason being is that it looks like LSU looks like Notre Dame in purple and yellow. It looks like the same team, just switch uniforms. The same garbage play calling. It looks the same. The same talking points. It looks the same. There's nothing about LSU that looks any different than Notre Dame. And what did Notre Dame do? The best they could do is go undefeated and then get smoked in the postseason.
Yeah, it's
you throw in playing in a tougher conference in a week to week. You've got teams that are looking to just chew your head off and spit it out, and they don't give a damn. No, he's not going to sustain that week-to-week battle that is the grind of the SEC.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I just don't see it after 3 years. I think five, and I'm looking at it. I just don't see them doing it after three. Too many people in the LSU ecosystem are buying into all of his politician BS. That is a problem. Too many people down there buying into his vision of kicking the can down the road and losing these games, but it'll get good later. And then that's how you lose a decade out of your life and you have nothing to show for it. They're falling for it. That's the problem. They're believing in this longer vision, and losing now is fine. He's getting in their heads with the politician lowering the standard BS.
Now here's where it shifts. The first year of the 12-team playoff, there is no way that LSU is going to stomach missing the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so.
Of its inception.
You wouldn't think so, but that's what
They're not.
I don't know, man. It's
not.
I think 5 years is the 5 years is where I'm looking at them.
If this were his first or second season, I'd say they be willing to ride it out and give it another year or two. But his third season, and they were talking about we're ready to win the championship. All of our coaches, they won championships in their third year. That third year thing is a huge deal. And I'm telling you, they're going to lose 4 games this season. They're not going to. He's what do you call it? What's his name? Lane Kiffin, USC style, fired on the tarmac.
Man,
after the fourth loss.
It's it's going to be interesting. I think you're looking at 5 years comfortably for him before they start asking real questions. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your call. I want you to travel safe. I'm going to try and squeeze a couple more callers in here for the end. Thank you.
All right.
Safe travels, buddy. Take care now. Thanks for the call. John puts ketchup on his hot dogs at the White Sox game. Yeah, you're certainly right. How many games will Notre Dame lose? Well, 1 until we get to the playoff, and then probably another 1, and then that's all over. I don't know. 205, make it come alive. What's going on? 570 after that. What's going on, 205?
Nothing much, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. There's a lot of college football action. It's going to be an interesting day tomorrow, and it is going to be there's a lot of interesting football games coming, and then the CFP and Florida State. What do you think?
So, okay, I'm going to kind of blow past the Florida State. We're going to crush them.
Okay.
Not too much to get into that.
Okay.
Now, I got a different take on the LSU Bama. I'm from Bama. I can't stand Alabama, and I can't stand Brian Kelly, so it puts me in a little bit of a pickle.
Okay.
But I would much rather think of this scenario, John. LSU somehow beats Bama, and Notre Dame wins out. They get the correct seeding, and if they get the correct seeding, it should be, whether it's 8 through 5, it should be a home playoff game. It genuinely should be. Because Indiana's not going to last. I doubt BYU is going to last. And, I mean, Miami, they just seem like a flawed team. I mean, they play a team with a pulse, and they're scared at halftime, and the refs pull them out of it. But, so, could you imagine LSU somehow matching up with Notre Dame and coming up to Notre Dame and then Marcus Freeman just beating the hell out of Brian Kelly? I mean, that would be electric.
It would be... It'd be unbelievable. Like, that matchup is the matchup everybody would want. If it was at our place, it would just be the build-up. It would be an absolutely unbelievable scene. The question is, if they beat Alabama, I don't think they play anybody tough after that. They'll probably end up with just the 2 losses. Where do they end up, matching up with 2 losses in the SEC then? I don't know. And
that's true.
And one of their losses is a bad one to a bad USC team too. So that's a little bit. It's going to be really, really interesting. So a part of me just wants them to get 3 losses and be done with it, and they're out. And all the LSU people could just cry that they didn't make the new playoff, and 9-3 isn't good enough. I want them to have that misery, but I also wouldn't mind if Alabama had 3 losses and we didn't have to worry about them either.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, if we could get either one of those teams to somehow come to South Bend, that would be amazing. But just for the just to rub it in his face. Oh gosh, I'd love to get
But what? Okay,
line
but
ball. I
wait.
don't know what
But
it
if
is.
you thought
you
about
just look
all
at-
the different things that have to happen to get Notre Dame into a hosting seed, I am not sure. I think 11-1 Notre Dame's in, but I am not sure they can navigate. I'm not sure. Let me rephrase that. I'm not sure the committee will allow Notre Dame to navigate themselves into a hosting situation. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I think they would. I mean, honestly, okay. So let's think of the teams that are ahead of them. Who's ahead of them as far as the 8 people? It's BYU. They could care less to see a home game there. It's Indiana. Who gives a damn?
Yeah.
Miami. They can't sell out a crowd if they are hosting the New England Patriots.
Well, unless Notre Dame shows up. It pisses me off, dude. There's five people in that dump for every home game. Notre Dame shows up and they're all there acting like they've been loyal the whole time. It's sickening.
Absolutely. I agree, but if you can get because I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people don't like Notre Dame, but I think a lot of people at ESPN and other news outlets, I think they like Marcus Freeman. And I don't know why that is. I mean, he's very charming, very handsome. We could go on all day and talk about him. But, I mean, I don't think they like Notre Dame, but I think they like Marcus Freeman. I think they would like to see Marcus Freeman succeed at Notre Dame to some degree. Because I've heard like some things down here that it's like, what if Florida, they kicked the can on old Billy Napier, and people are saying like, what if they went and got Freeman?
Yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen that too. And you tell them all the things that you don't get at Notre Dame, you have them all here. No recruiting restrictions, NIL out the wazoo, reading is optional, warm weather, Florida South talent, have at it, buddy. That's how you would entice them.
Yeah, they said his buyout's only $4 million. That's because they haven't renewed a contract or extended one, so I'm not really too nervous about that. But I don't think something about him. If he doesn't seem like a Florida guy, he could seem like an SEC guy, but not a Florida guy. So it's just hard for me to imagine that. And I mean, I think, let me backtrack to what I was saying before. I think Notre Dame could and probably should get a home playoff game because, look, I mean, we can take a step back and look at, okay, Notre Dame lost to NIU, which I'm so damn tired of talking about. But if Notre Dame wins out and wins how they're supposed to win, like how they beat the hell out of it, ever since that Louisville game, and really the Louisville game shouldn't have been as close as it was, but ever since that Louisville game, the team has turned it on. I think the average score for their game has been 42 points, Notre Dame, to opponent having 11 points. And if we continue that trend right there, I mean, I think the committee should take a step back and realize, okay, that game, for some odd reason, for some way, somehow, it was a fluke. Because the week before, we went right into SEC territory, one of the Texas A&M's top 5 biggest crowds ever, beat them by 10. I mean, and this has happened before. Like Ohio State lost to Virginia Tech, a 6-6 Virginia Tech team. I know the brand's not the same as NIU and Virginia Tech, but that's still a horrible loss. A 6-6 anybody is a horrible loss. So I think if we continue on the trajectory that we're on, and Riley Leonard continues to show out, I mean, I don't see why. And they probably will screw us out of a home playoff, but I think we should get it. That's just my opinion about that.
Yeah, it's man, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all shapes out, and we'll get our first bit of information tomorrow and be able to see where everybody thinks Notre Dame is and where Freeman is. And here's the big thing. Is there an extension in, they talked last year about Freeman in an extension, then you lost to Clemson and it all died down. I'm wondering if there is some sort of extension in the works with the bigger buyout for Notre Dame if they end up going 11-1 and making the playoff in year 3. I would not be surprised at all to learn if that was the case, and it would likely come with an increased buyout package. But I still believe that if somebody wants it enough, they'll just pay it enough and come up with the money.
I think you're right. I mean, but also, I mean, Freeman's got to accept, to go to a different job. And I don't think right now, I think he likes the challenge and the uniqueness, and you can tell he loves Notre Dame compared to when Brian Kelly probably loved Notre Dame at first, but probably like after his second marriage, he got tired of it and wanted a divorce.
Yeah,
So,
he doesn't. He ended up Brian Kelly ended up in a relationship that he resented. And that's a very, very you can only hide that for so long and go through life so long like that. Like in a marriage or any other office job or whatever. He was in an arrangement that he resented. And that's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
And that always ends rough. And that's what it was. He ended up not liking Notre Dame in a lot of ways, and a lot of the way Notre Dame operates and Notre Dame people. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't see us stumbling or getting caught up in the moment at all against Florida State, even though there's not really a moment. But I just hope we put on a show for the recruits. I think there's a Michigan tight end coming into town, and I would love for Mitch Evans to just go off, and because anything we could take anything away from Michigan, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
And Derek Meadows is coming into town. We need to show out. But I know it's kind of hard to get up for Florida State because they're the equivalent of most 4A high school teams right now.
Yeah, it's man, you're right. They're struggling. Hey, thanks for the call on a Monday. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one. Call me again. Freeman doesn't love ND, loves the opportunity. Stop being dumb here, guys. Ma'am, it's even if that's true, he's at least navigating it as if he respects it. Like, do you get what I'm saying? You may be absolutely right, but at least he's doing and saying and operating in the right way that makes people around Notre Dame feel like he likes Notre Dame, and that's something Kelly could never do. Kelly couldn't even fake that. Like, if you want to accept that's the dynamic, and it very well may be, Kelly wasn't even willing to fake that he was buying into all the Notre Dame-y stuff. It was all about Kelly's ego, number one, and everything else, second, third, fourth, fifth. 570, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
John, what's going on?
What's going on? Hey, thanks for holding, and thanks for calling on a Monday. There's a lot of college football action. What do you think?
Yeah, I know. You know what? I really got, and I'm sorry I didn't call in after the Navy game. I've been sick, but we beat the shit out of Navy, so that doesn't matter. But the last two callers, I just got to say this about the last two callers. One, I would never rather lose to NIU. I would rather lose to Texas A&M on opening night by 7 points than lose to NIU 16-14. I mean, and then the caller that just called, we do not deserve a home playoff game. Like, what are we to? Are we serious here? Are we serious? Do you really think we deserve a home playoff game? Our schedule is softer than baby poop. You know what I'm saying? Like, our best win is Texas A&M, who just got the doors blown off them by a South Carolina team that we were blown.
So wait. Just first off, just so everybody knows, this is 570. The guy, you guys were all here when this guy called for the first time and went off, and it was hilarious. That's who this is. People are asking in the chat. Yes, that is who this is. So what do you?
And can you tell the people in the chat, because I can't watch on the TV or on YouTube right now. But can we just please, like, I'm not a cokehead or a meth head just because I'm passionate about football. Everyone was saying that. I was dying laughing in the comments.
Hey, don't worry, man. People have questioned me too. I want to know. Okay, so what do you think happens then? If Notre Dame goes 11-1, do you think they're going to be in the field but on a lower seed then, or do you think they're going to keep them out altogether? Where do you think the reality is?
I think just because we're Notre Dame and we travel, I believe we get into the playoffs. And you know what? And not for nothing, I hope BYU goes undefeated and loses in the conference championship game, so we can get a BYU, somebody like that, or they win and we get a BYU. Because, and I'm just gonna say this, like, Clemson, Dabo, what you're doing still doesn't work. Hilarious. Penn State, you Penn Stated, you're still a fraud. Like, that was hilarious.
Dude, bro, that Clemson game surprised me, and it was home. If it was at Louisville in an electric atmosphere, I look at this totally differently. They completely pooped the bed at home, rubbing that rock and doing all their home cooking crap, and they played like dump.
And that is the funniest thing about it, because seriously, Clemson, you are not the Deshaun Watson Clemson team no more. You guys, like, I don't. Cade Klubnik is not it. You guys were averaging 44 points. I mean, I've been listening to Joel Klatt and Josh Pate or Pat, however you say his last name, and they were just talking Clemson up. They're going to win the they're going to win the ACC, and I'm like, they suck. They played nobody, and the biggest game they had was Georgia, and they got the doors blown off them. Now you lay an egg against Louisville. Like, let's be serious. And Miami's terrible. And not for nothing, this is what I'm saying. And this is how I know Notre Dame's going to get into the playoff, because I believe in my team, and I'm never going to say my team's going to lose. I believe we're going to go 11-1. Still shouldn't have lost. Northern still pisses me off. But, I mean, we'll blow the doors off. If we were in the ACC this year, we would win the ACC. That's how terrible every game in the ACC is. It is absolutely hilarious. And the one guy that just called and said, talking about the Florida State game, thinking it's going to be like 28-10 or we're going to blow doors off them. No. We can't take anything for granted being Notre Dame fans, because that would be our luck. We lose to a shit Florida State team. Excuse my language. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But all the teams in Florida are frauds, though. They're all frauds. But Cam Ward is an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, they keep getting away with it, man. They've been begging for losses. They keep getting away with it, and it's going to be. So I don't know.
But you know what? They get away with it because they don't pull a Notre Dame and lose to NIU.
Yeah.
They pull it out no matter what.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is Notre Dame? What do they rank, 12 or 13 or 14 right out of it tomorrow, or do you have them in but at the back end? What are you predicting for tomorrow's rankings?
I think we come out 10 to 12, one in between those spots.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be. Who's better than us, really, outside of the top tier team?
Well,
I mean, we're a tier 2 team. Let's be honest, though. Let's be real, John. We've never seen a championship as we've been alive. I've never watched Notre Dame win championships, so I'm going to say we're a tier 2 team.
Yeah.
But I'm not living off that Lou Holtz Notre Dame national championship.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I was 4. I don't remember it either, so I have no memories of us ever winning a major bowl game.
I wasn't even born.
Bro, I think about it. I'm 40 years old, and I have no memories of my team ever, not even winning a championship, but a major bowl game I could be proud of. That has been my miserable existence as a 40-year-old Notre Dame fan. Not one season has ended.
Right, and I'm a 30-year-old Notre Dame fan.
Not one stupid season has ended with me being proud of Notre Dame. There's not been one major, John, we won this bowl and that bowl. Yeah, none of them that moved the needle that anybody respects, and I'm sick of it.
I mean, and Jesus Christ, son, just think about this. I'm a 30-year-old Notre Dame fan, right? My father's seen Notre Dame win national championship. He has those memories, right? The best memory I have is the two. And this is how you know I'm really passionate about Notre Dame. When we played in the Fiesta Bowl against LSU, the Jamarcus Russell LSU team, and they blew the doors off of us. That's the best memory I have, because Boise State won the damn Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Boise State has won a Fiesta Bowl before I've seen my team win a goddamn a big bowl game.
Yeah, it's
I don't care about the Sun Bowl.
It's time to change it all. And the way to do that is,
but I think Freeman's doing that.
Get your way into the playoff, find a way to get a home game, and then beat a team in South Bend, break all the history we're gonna make. We're gonna win a first playoff game in South Bend. We're gonna break that streak of major bowl wins that we have, and we're gonna do it all at once. It's gonna be amazing. Anything else, my friend? I'm gonna try and get running here. I got one more call and we're gonna go. Anything else?
John, I just want to say I appreciate you picking up. I know you always pick up. That's great to hear you. I do think we beat the door. I think if we don't beat the doors off of Florida State, how they look, that's terrible. That's terrible.
Yeah.
We need to beat the doors off Florida State. We need to look as good as possible for the rest of the season. And you know what? I would not be surprised if we lost. And and you just, like you just said, like, you know, we're going to win a home playoff game, or we're going to win national championship. John, I don't think I'll ever see that in my lifetime, okay? I don't think I'll ever see that in my lifetime. That's how much faith I have in Notre Dame at this point. But I have faith in Marcus Freeman, and I trust the process.
There you go, man. It'll be interesting to see. Let's go along for the ride. Hey, have a good week, man. Thanks for the call. Call again soon.
You too, John.
Have a good one, buddy. Go Irish. I love it. 618, last caller of the day. What's going on, man?
Hey, well, man.
Hey, there's a lot to think about, man. I want to know where you think Notre Dame falls in this playoff thing. I want to know what you think about Florida State being bad at football.
I think they fall anywhere between 7 and 9, man. I think, you know what I'm saying?
Ooh, that's higher than a lot of people are thinking.
Man, that's because a lot of people don't got no confidence like I got, man. The last few weeks, the last few games, I said, man, Notre Dame is going to blow these teams out. Man, they're going to finish the season. They're going to blow out Army. They're going to blow out Florida State over the weekend. As long as they focus, none of them teams can touch. And be honest with you, man, nobody really looks that good except for Oregon.
Yeah, it's really interesting to look around the country, man. And looks like a lot of teams can beat a lot of teams. You don't have that one dominant team head and shoulders above everybody.
If it was any year that I say Notre Dame could beat any of them teams, it's this year, man. I mean, I'm saying, like, man, the only team that scare me if we have to meet up with them is Oregon. And it's a possibility we won't meet up with them until the national championship game, man. Nobody scared me that's in the playoffs. Georgia don't look good. They got about 10 almost losses. You know, Ohio State don't look that good, man. I picked Penn State to win. They don't look good. They can't win a big game. Nobody. Texas only big game of the season. They get it handed to them at home. Man, nobody look good except for Oregon right now.
So what's your thought then? You got to be in it to win it. Just get in, and then Notre Dame play your good defense, and let it go. But dude, 7, 8, 9, I'm expecting Notre Dame to be 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere like that would be my guess. I just don't think they're going to prop Notre Dame up like that with the Northern loss. They'll do everything else they can. They'll have Iowa State. They'll have Iowa State in there with their conference loss, or SMU ahead of Notre Dame. They're going to do something to penalize us for Northern. I'm telling you, they are.
Yeah, but that's only during the first ranking, man. We not where. It's not where you start. It's where you finish, John. That Northern Illinois loss, yeah, it's a bad loss, but man, everybody take bad losses every year, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I just think
the SEC,
man. Northern though.
SEC,
Northern though. It's different though. But Northern is just different. It's off the radar. I think it's so bad it's off the radar, man. I just think the Northern loss is a different animal. John, I think it's a different animal.
John, if we was in the SEC, nobody would even bring up that Northern Illinois loss. Nobody.
Man.
Because they would be like, well, we'll get a bunch of overrated, hyped up conference teams that we'll be knocking down, and they would be like, well, that Northern Illinois loss don't mean anything because they beat everybody in the SEC.
Well, see, but I guess a part of that is the challenge of Notre Dame being independent, is that you don't have a conference slate to compare them to with everybody else. So you're already off on an island on your own. And then you have a hodgepodge schedule of a bunch of things mixed together. And then you lost to Northern. It's rough.
Okay. Yes, we lost to Northern, but that's been almost 2 months ago, John.
It's a shadow.
I'm looking at it like this.
I just think that shadow, that is an ugly shadow that follows you around, man.
Notre Dame beat Louisville, which Louisville was 15th at the time. They also beat Texas A&M while Texas A&M was still ranked, but they was ranked at the time. They beat Navy while Navy was ranked at the time. They beat the doors off of Navy while they was ranked. And they're going to beat the doors off of Army while they're ranked. Army should be a top 15 team. They should be anywhere between a top 15 and top 20 team when we play them later on.
Man, it's going to be really, really interesting. What do you make of Florida State? I think Notre Dame rolls them. I'm not getting in my head about them rising from the dead to beat Notre Dame. They are so bad. They are down and out. They don't want to play. They're already quitting for the year. It's going to be chilly. They're not going to want to be there. And Notre Dame runs them over. That's my prediction.
Man, they already quit.
Yeah.
I think Norvell, man, his time is limited at Florida State. I mean, I think it's limited, but this game might get worse than the Purdue game, man.
Yeah, and I hope so. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do and pound these guys. Jay Carr, yep, planning on doing the stream tonight with Mike over on Patreon. Even though we didn't have a game, we'll talk about the playoff and whatever else the games that happened in Florida State. So I don't know, man. We're gonna see where they're gonna rank us. I don't know. You got to keep winning, kick the crap out of everybody. I don't know.
First ranking will be anywhere between 7 and 13.
Yeah,
It all depends on. It all depends on.
That's a big. That's a lot of leeway.
Bad loss, or do they look at the wins?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a big range. And then I can't let you get off the phone and end the show without asking you, what do you think, LSU or Alabama? That's a big one down south now.
I hate both of them teams, man. I got family in Tuscaloosa, and that's all they do is talk about Alabama, man.
Yeah,
I hope they tie.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it is tough. Like, dude, I'm never going to complain if Brian Kelly gets 3 losses. I'm also not going to complain if Alabama gets 3. This is one where I'm going to be okay, probably no matter what happens. I'm probably going to be okay.
But I hate Brian Kelly more, so I'm going to pick on Alabama.
Yeah, me too. I think I agree with that. I think so too. Hey, anything else, man? Thanks for touching base on a Monday. Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing I was going to say, man, is like, man, people, y'all talking about the committee, when Notre Dame, the committee always loves Notre Dame, man. Don't be surprised if Notre Dame is in the top 10 between 7 and 9, because the committee loves Notre Dame. The AP polls, I've been saying it all year, the AP polls and the coaches polls mean absolutely nothing. But when it comes down to the committee loves Notre Dame.
Whew. Man, you really think they're going to, with all those conference people all those conference-affiliated people sitting there led by Ward Manuel of Michigan? You think they're in Notre Dame's favor?
John, look at the history of the committee, even going back to the 14 playoff. It's been like the year that they lost one game to Clemson, I felt like Notre Dame shouldn't have been in the playoffs that year. But the committee loves Notre Dame. They love Notre Dame, so they put them in the playoffs. It's been, I feel like the committee loves Notre Dame. Don't be surprised in this first ranking if they're in the top 10. Don't be surprised if they're out of the top 12.
It's going to be, it's going to be really, really interesting.
But the history, it's just the history say that they will be in the top 12 in the first ranking.
Man, well, we'll see. We're going to get some answers tomorrow. We're going to get some real answers, and then we'll be able to kind of go from there. We'll have an idea what these people value and what they're weighting and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be interesting. Hey, thanks for the call on a Monday, man. I appreciate you always being in the mix.
All right, man.
Have a good one, buddy. Take care. I can always count on him, man. He calls all the time. I love it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. All right, you guys, this was an exciting Monday. We covered a lot of ground. We had a lot of people. We had a lot of calls, a lot of chats. I thank everybody for participating. Thanks for the calls. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the regular chats. I'm going to record something that'll go out tomorrow morning about the playoff committee and what's going on with that. And then we'll go from there. Patreon live tonight with Mike. And so we're going to have a lot for you. Yeah, exciting. That's a chock full show to start Florida State week. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I guess we'll just see what this committee does. Thanks for being here, everybody. Love the engagement. Take care.